I'm Jessica Minton for IB Times TV, and joining me today is IB Times reporter Alexander Kaufman to talk about why the New York Times won't be sold anytime soon. So today was an interesting day. The New York Times website went down.
Yeah, convenient, right?
Right.
Yeah, I write this glowing thing on like the Sulzberger's legacy of maintaining the Times, and then the website crashes for like an hour and a half.
Right, exactly.
Really good.
But looking back over the past month, there's been a lot of acquisition of big newspapers like IBT Media acquired Newsweek. Then we had Amazon's CEO purchased the Washington Post, and then going back to the Red Sox owner buying the Boston Globe. So looking at all of these, there's definitely a lot of speculation now about the New York Times. Why do you think they won't be sold?
Well, I mean, as Seth Nukin, whom I interviewed for the piece, said very bluntly, the Sulzbergers have said they won't, and they really don't have a history of making public statements and then doing the opposite. So there's that. Secondly, I mean, the New York Times over the last year and a half has been paring down on all of its assets. I mean, this is a company that once owned broadcast outlets and various things like about.com. It was a content site.
Right.
And in April, the CEO Mark Thompson said that the new strategy for growth was to just completely hone in and focus on the New York Times brand. So as part of that, they renamed the International Herald Tribune, paper that they actually used to co-own with the Washington Post in both their heydays. And they're rebranding that in October as the International New York Times, and they plan on launching more products that are under the New York Times brand. So that to me, yes, that could mean that they really want to beef this up and make it attractive to the type of billionaire buyer that wants to own a newspaper like Jeff Bezos. I mean, that's
right.
Owning the Washington Post really changes the way that you look at him, and it's a really prestigious thing to have. But I think the New York Times, it was profitable in the last quarter, and they really want to turn themselves into a profitable company and under the Sulzbergers.
Now, looking at the Sulzbergers, why is it important to have a family-owned news business?
Well, the history of newspapers showed that newspapers were really at their best when they were owned by a family. The Wall Street Journal, I mean, I love the Wall Street Journal. There are a lot of people, for instance, the New York Times columnist Joe Nocera, who thinks that since Rupert Murdoch bought it, it's been quote-unquote foxified, and they run fewer long-form feature stories off the front. They're more into politics now. But under the Bancrofts, most people agreed that that was when the Wall Street Journal was at its very best, and that's when the Wall Street Journal really achieved its core mission. Same with the LA Times under the Chandlers. And hopefully, maybe the Bezos family will become a newspaper family that runs the Washington Post. But under the Grahams, I mean, we had Watergate.
Right. And in your article, you mentioned about how the New York Times is basically trying to rebrand, particularly internationally. What are they doing right now to be more sustainable?
Well, to be more sustainable, they've sold a lot of these other properties that are non-New York Times brands. For instance, they sold last year their regional newspaper group, which included 16 local papers around the country. They sold the Boston Globe, or rather the New England Media Group, which is headed by the Boston Globe. It also includes a Western Massachusetts paper. So they got $70 million of cash from that, and they sold about.com. So they're filling up their coffers, so they have the money to invest in themselves. And they have the paywall up. Now they're charging for the mobile app, and they have a thriving events business. I mean, they're doing a lot to make the New York Times specifically a money-making entity. Not the New York Times is subsidized by these other non-New York Times branded ventures, which is what they were once doing, in the early 2000s.
Right, and you brought up the paywall. Is that helping the New York Times?
Definitely. Circulation is up, and that's what really helped lead them to profitability in the last quarter, even though they have declining revenues from advertising dollars still diminishing.
Well, Alexander, it's always great to have your insight. Thank you again for joining us.